Hello everybody, welcome back to Fungus News. I'm Fungus and I'm going to be presenting you week 4 in the Cobalion division. Now this week had lots of different interesting matchups that actually culminated in very interesting matches. Our first matchup of the week is the Kerry Wisps, not the Kerry Wisps, the Virginia Verbravas coached by Jeremy versus the Kerry Wisps coached by Don Bozo. Now, the Verbravas absolutely needed a win this week to try and keep their playoff picture even remotely alive. So they were really looking for that win, and the Kerry Wisps just lost their first match of the season, so they were looking to get to bounce back and get a win here. So for both parties, it was actually a very important matchup. Now the matchup was pretty closely contested for the most part. Um, it started off, as you usually see it. However, uh, the Bravos were able to get a pretty big some pretty big damage on the Rillaboom, bringing it down to 55%. Afterwards, a few switches happened, and it turned out that the Magirna was in on a Annihilate. Now, the Magirna was actually able to set up Calm Mind, which made it very scary. The Primarina came in. However, the Magirna actually had Aura Sphere, which made it so that the Primarina pretty much went down in one hit. The Iron Treads came in to try and revenge kill. However, uh, the Carry Wisps decided to not sack off their Magirna. It would be a big threat. It's still a big threat and would still be useful later on. Now a few more switches happen here and there. Um, we actually got to see a sunny day Saint Shocks. However, it just didn't really do much this week. Pretty much just got scared out by a balloon Raichu. The Iron Chest was also burned, which would actually become very important, which could become very important later on. However, the Raichu was able to pick up the first kill for the Verbravas this week against the carry with Blastoise, picking up a kill with Thunderbolt. Now, a few more switches happened, both of them trying to posture for a better positioning, and the Annihilate was actually able to pick up the third kill of the match, killing the Colossal. So that means that if the Verbravas were able to get some hazards up, they would actually be able to keep them for the rest of the match, because both of the spinners are now dead. Unfortunately for the Verbravas, um, the Dragapult was running Phantom Force, which meant that it would always go through Substitute. So even the substitute Annihilate was unable to take the hit, which would actually lead to the Chen Pao coming in, which led to the Magirna coming in, and it actually started setting up some. No, it actually didn't set up anything. It actually predicted the Iron Shreds to come in and hit it with a Aura Sphere, which killed it. So now it's at +1. Raichu comes in, but is unable to do much. Was actually able to paralyze the Magirna, which could potentially become a problem for the Carry Wisps, mainly because the Cresselia can come in and potentially set up some Calm Minds here. However, the Carry Wisps came prepared and brought Imprison to make sure that the Calm Mind Cresselia was not a threat against the Magirna. And as the Cresselia tried to set up its Calm Minds, or just tried to stay in, it was unable to really do anything to the Magirna, and eventually was like 30 or 40 turns so later, the Magirna was actually able to finish off the Cresselia with a Draining Kiss, and afterwards the Chen Pao came in. Potentially the Chen Pao could have actually won the game if the Magirna got paralyzed twice. However, the Magirna was not paralyzed twice, was actually not paralyzed at all, and was able to finish off the Chen Pao. So the Magirna went absolutely crazy this match, picking up I think 5 kills. So it was an absolute, it was a super strong bring this week, and I mean it's a Magirna. It was about to do something eventually. But yeah, the Verbals are really going to need to pick up their slack here. They're not looking good in terms of playoffs. They're pretty much going to have to win every single match going forward, while the Carry Wisps are in a pretty decent position, going 3-2, with a nice +8 differential. That's a decent enough spot for week 4. So good job on the carry Wisps, and hopefully the Bravas can bounce back because they really need to. Our next matchup is the London Vespiqueens, coached by Jake, versus the Protectors of Stalingrad, coached by Staniel. Now, the London Vespiqueens absolutely need a win here. They haven't had a legitimate win other than a forfeit win against the Russian Rapidashes in week one, and just even to try and keep their playoff run going, they're just going to need to win this matchup. It's going to be very important. While the defenders of Stalingrad are looking to improve their already stellar 3-0 plus 10 differential to 4-0. Now, the London Vespiqueens brought a team of Giratina, Galarian Slowking, Mielskarada, Palafin, Entei, and Terapagos, while the Stalingrads brought a team of uh, Giratina Origin, Moltres, Zamazenta Crowned, Hatterene, Ursaluna, and finally Milotic. Now, um, both led off with their water types and pretty much promptly switched them out almost immediately. Um, Now, the Giratina Origin was able to get a pretty strong Dragon Claw off on the Meowscarada, switching in. However, the Meowscarada turned out to be special, which meant that the incoming Moltres was pretty much forced to switch out almost immediately, as the Meowscarada actually has Power Gem. So the Moltres switched out and brought in the Hatterene, which actually was Light Screen and Trick Room. So as the Entei killed the Hatterene, um, the Stalirat's Ursaluna came in and threatened some big damage on the Entei, um, doing some big damage to Giratina, and actually was able to two-shot the Giratina, killing it off, which is a huge kill for the Stalingrad, as I mean, Giratina is the Vespiqueens legendary. Meowscarada came in trying to revenge kill the Ursaluna, however, was unable to do so as the Meowscarada, because of the light screen, doing very little damage, only doing 27%, which meant that the Ursaluna was able to kill it back with a Drain Punch. Now Terrapagos did come in afterwards and was actually able to finish it off with a Terra Starstorm, stopping the Ursaluna's rampage in its tracks. Now they switch around a little bit, um, and at some point the Giratina Origin was actually in on a Slowking Galar, um, potentially trying to pick up its kill, and it was actually able to pick up the kill, which is huge. It was able to kill it with a Poltergeist, which was surprising because you would think they would switch out. Now Terrapagos came in, trying to look to get potentially a Dark Pulse off, but the Zamazenta Crown came in and pretty much ate that up. However, unlike most Terrapagoses, this one didn't have Calm Mind, which meant that the Sawgrass actually made a mistake by going for Iron Defense, leaving their Zamazenta Crown to be two-shot by the Terrapagos with a Flamethrower. This would actually become important later on as the Giratina Origin came back in to try and finish off the Terrapagos, which was able to do with two Dragon Claws, but this left it at only 23%, which was very, very little. It meant that it wouldn't be able to do much walling, which meant that whenever the Palafin came in, Stan was forced to switch out into their Milotic, and however, this Palafin was bulk up, so that meant that if it had the right set, it would be able to kill off the rest of Stan's team. However, the Palafin did not have a fighting move, which was very, very surprising. Only had Jet Punch as its attacking move. So it wasn't actually able to properly two-shot the Milotic, which was very unfortunate for Jake, as the Milotic was Rocky Helmet. Now the Entei came in, and actually this would potentially spell the end for the Staliwraths, as this Entei was faster than Stan's entire team. So as it went for Stone Edge, it would actually be able to, as long as it landed, it would be able to kill the rest of Stan's team, as like I said before, the Giratina Origin was only at 23%, and I mean, a Moltres is not taking a Stone Edge. So Entei went for Stone Edge and missed both of them. So yeah, because of that, the Stalingrad were able to pick up their fourth win of the season. Pretty lucky win, I would say, but a win's a win. So good job on the Stalingrads. And even though the Vespiquens did put up a good fight, and really should have won if it weren't for bad luck, at the end of the day, that's Pokemon. That's the game we play, and they're really going to need to pick it up going forward. They absolutely need to win out for the rest if they want even a chance to make playoffs. So on to the next match. Our third match of the week is the Philadelphia Smeargles, coached by Fungus, versus the Russian Rapidashes, coached by Martin. Both of them kind of needed to get a win here, as they are both looking not the best for playoffs. So getting a win here would be pretty big. Um, Now the Philadelphia Smeargles brought a team of Hisuian Quillfish, Ogerpon Heartflame, Gliscor, Hariyama, Fluttermane, and Vaporeon, while the Russian Rapidashes brought a team of Clodsire, Skeledirge, Bramblegast, the Oxus Normal, um, Greninja, and finally Como. Now, the matchup started with a ground mirror matchup between Clodsire and Cheap Trick. Both of them were able to get up hazards. However, the only hazard that stayed on the field were the Russian Rapidashes, as the Bramblegast came in and was able to rapid spin them away. A few switches came along. There wasn't much action. It was mostly just both of the teams trying to get a better positioning. Um, yeah, pretty much that was the entire beginning of the matchup. Not many, no kills all the way up until turn 22, where the Hariyama actually came in on a Skeledirge and was able to scare it out, going for a knockoff, doing big damage on the incoming Clodsire, and was able to kill it off with his Facade. Afterwards, Deoxys came in and was able to revenge kill the Hariyama, however, not before taking 50% from a Bullet Punch. Hisuian Quillfish came in trying to revenge kill the Deoxys, but of course it wasn't able to do so, and Skeledirge came in. Skeledirge was able to get a Torch Song off before the uh, Vaporeon came in, trying to maybe try and get some damage off, but was unable to really do any progress, as the Ogerpon Heartflame came in and to try and scare out the Skeledirge, or maybe try and kill it as well. However, it wasn't able to kill it. It was only able to turn out into the Vaporeon, which actually the Greninja took massive damage from, going all the way down to 9%. Greninja went for Dark Pulse, but was unable to kill the Vaporeon, and Vaporeon was able to wish back up. Now, the Mo came in and actually revealed Dragon Dance, which was very scary for the Smeargles. So they were actually forced to bring out their Fluttermane, which was booster energy with plus speed, which was able to scare out the Komodo. Now Skeledirge came in, and here the Philadelphia Smeargles make a mistake by just trying to spam the ever-living crap out of Mystical Fire, which was just not doing enough damage, and the Fluttermane went down after a little bit. Ogerpon Heartflame came in, however the Bramblegast kind of just came in on the U-turn, and afterwards the Hisuian Quillfish came in on the Bramblegast, was unable to really do much, and then went for a crunch, but and tried to taunt the Komodo, but was unable to do so before he was able to get a Dragon Dance, and because of this, the Komodo was able to finish off the rest of the Smeargles team. So the Russian Rapidashers were able to pick up a big win against the Smeargles, bringing their record to 2-2 with a +1 differential, and the Smeargles are going to be looking forward to next week, because hopefully they will be able to pick up a win. They haven't won with their new team yet. So yeah, both players played pretty well overall, other than the Smeargles making one big mistake, which hopefully they will not make next week. But yeah, on to the next match. So our next matchup is the Ellesmere Eternals, coached by Kung Fu Panda, versus the Trondheim Rosenspors, coached by Inhydra. Now now the Ellesmere Eternals have been on a pretty good streak so far, winning their last two. So we're looking to upgrade their record even more, their win streak even longer. And then the Trondheim Rosensports have so far had a really rough season, not having a legitimate win. They were able to win their last week's matchup, but that was a forfeit win, so they haven't been able to win with their team yet. So hopefully they were able to. They were hoping to pick up a win here. Um, so the matchup was pretty even. It was, I think, the closest matchup this week, or I think another one was pretty close as well. But at the beginning, the Trondheim Rosensports led off with their Hydrapple, and then uh, the Ellesmere Eternals led off with their Rotom Heat. Now the Rotom Heat was doing massive damage. This thing, I don't know what the set was, but it looked like it was specs because it did around half to the Hydrapple, which was absolutely insane. Even with an overheat, which was resisted because of the Terra Fire. Now the Landorus came in trying to kill off the Hydrapple, was unable to, but however actually went for a U-turn, trying to keep momentum. Obviously the Hydrapple was not just going to be sacked off that easily. However, the Rotom came back in on the Bronzong, which meant that the Ellesmere Eternals were able to keep a momentum with the upcoming Volt Switch. Keldeo was able to come in on the Hydrapple, but then probably switched back out into the Rotom, so a lot of momentum shifting going on uh, for the Ellesmere Eternals. However, this would end up being the end of the momentum game, as the Tentacruel actually came in and was able to kill off the Rotom Heat with a liquidation. Metagross came back in and was able to kill off the Bronzong with a knockoff, and Spectre trying to come in and kill off the Metagross, however was unable to pick up the kill. The Metagross left on 18% and was able to finish to kill the Spectrier with a knockoff. So the Trondheim Rosenspor's biggest threats were gone. Metagross picking up two pretty good kills there on Bronzong and Spectrier. Now it was revenge killed by the Zamazenta. In defense on this oncoming Zacian. So Zacian and Zamazenta were now against each other. But of course, this was a pretty bad matchup for Zamazenta, but it was able to actually do a very good chunk to the Zacian, doing 42%, but did switch out right after. Or no, actually it didn't. Yes, it did switch out. It switched out into Sylveon, which was named after me actually, which was very rude because it just immediately died. So yeah, that was unfortunate. But anyways, I guess I'm dead now. So, but the show must keep going. Zacian then switches out on when the Tentacruel came in, who actually went for Gunk Shot. Now the Landorus came in, was able to pick up a kill on the Hydrapple, leaving the Trondheim Rosenspores with 2 versus 4. Now this 2 was actually a pretty solid lineup of 2. They were able to kill the Landorus with a Ice Fang. However, the Landorus was actually scarfed, going for Earth Power. Now, the Tentacle came in, trying to eat a hit from the Zacian, which was able to do, and then was able to kill off the Zacian afterwards. Now it was actually 2 versus 2, but however, the Keldeo was able to come in, get a Trailblaze off, and was able to finish off the rest of Anhydra's Pokemon. They were too frail at this point, and they were just unable to take the hits from Keldeo. Even if they were resisted, Tentacruel was just too weak at this point, and the Ellesmere Eternals go up to 3-1 with a plus 8 differential, so this was a good win from them. It was a good showing from the Trondheim Rosenspores, however, unable to pick up the win anyways. So they're really going to need to pick it up. They made some pretty decent plays here and there. The Tentacruel, I think, was scarfed, which was a pretty solid bring, actually. Makes me want to use Tentacruel in the future, but the Ellesmere Eternals were just a bit too good this game, and their team was just a bit too strong, so they were able to pick up the win there, and they're looking like the team to be right now. So yeah, next matchup is coming up. Our next matchup is the All-Seeing, coached by Renalyn, versus the Legendary Landorus, coached by Cake. Now the All-Seeing have so far had a pretty pretty rough season, going 1-2. Um, so they were really looking to get a win here this week, try and keep their playoff picture alive, while the legendary Landers were trying to keep their win streak alive, as they haven't lost yet. Now, both now the All-Seeing brought a team of Alugia, um, Galarian Zapdos, Carbink, Gastrodon, Fortress, and finally Kieran Black, while the Legendary Landers brought a team of Urshifu, Single Strike, Mewtwo, Dusclops, Hisuian Avalugg, Scizor, and finally Landorus Incarnate. Now, this both of the Legendary Landers led off with their Hisuian Avalugg, while the Kyurem, now the All-Seeing led off with Kyurem. It's very hot in here. I'm sorry. I'm just tripping over my words here. But anyways, the Kyurem here was actually special. So that means the Avalugg, who would usually be pretty decent at dealing with a Kyurem, was unable to do so. Or usually able to deal with physical attackers. But yeah, this one was a special Kyurem. Both of them switched out Fortress and Scissor, so the Buck steals. A few more switches happened. The Fortress went for a Volt Switch, and the Kyurem actually very boldly switched in on a Thundurus, who would usually be able to outspeed a Kyurem, but it seemed as though Kyurem was scarfed. Was able to go for an Ice Beam, doing some decent damage against the Scizor. Um, However, it seemed that as the Fortress was the designated switch in for that Scizor. Now, surprisingly enough, the Fortress went for Zap Cannon, which was absolutely insane. I mean, Zap Cannon is just a terrible move, but it just went against. It just went for Zap Cannon against the Mewtwo, which is just insane. Um, However, this Mewtwo, surprisingly enough, had no moves to actually hurt this Fortress. So it was just able to kind of Volt Switch out of there and go back into the Kyurem as the it pretty much was full switched on the Thundurus, and Kyurem came back in, which really at this point there was not many things I can switch in on it. Dusclops did switch in on it, only taking 24%. But yeah, Kyurem just kind of switches out, and Carbink comes in. That was actually Carbink versus Mewtwo, which was interesting matchup. Now, the Mewtwo went for substitute as these Galarian Zapdos came in, so he was able to break the substitute with a U-turn. Carbink came back in and was pretty much foddered off. It did get a layer of spikes up, so it was able to get some value. Zapdos came back in, but used Terra Ground, and it turns out that the Galarian Zapdos was also Scarf, so the Legendary Landorus were running dual Scarfers, which is a very risky strategy usually, but this time it seems as though it actually was a very smart one. Um, the Mewtwo was then switched out for in favor of Urshifu, who was able to take the knockoff rather well. Now this is where the Legendary Landorus make a mistake in team building, as they were not as the Urshifu was actually went down to a counter from the Gastrodon. If it had Trailblaze, it would most likely would have killed, and the Urshifu would be alive with a +1 in speed, which would be very scary for very scary for the All-Seeing. Now Mewtwo comes back in and was able to pick up the kill against the Gastrodon, but the Zapdos just came back in as it is scarfed and was able to pick up the kill on the not on the Mewtwo, on the Thundurus. Scizor came in, but the Zapdos switched out into Lugia, and at this point there's nothing that can take out a Lugia. Due to the Thundurus being dead, Lugia just kind of comes in and just substitutes on his opponent, and is just able to kill to finish off the match with a few air slashes and such. So yeah, very strong, a pretty big upset I'd say. Renalyn so far hasn't had as much success as Cake. However, they prove that it doesn't really matter how much success you've had in the past, it just matters what you do in the present. And that's what they did. They played a very smart match and were able to pick up a pretty big win here. Pretty surprising as well. Legendary Landorus, though, are still in a very strong position, so losing here wasn't the biggest deal. They're just going to have to bounce back in the next week. So, on to the next match. Our final match of the week and my personal game of the week for week 4 is the Santa Maria Absols, coached by Mortain versus the Michigan Manectrics coached by Tog. Um, the Santa Maria Absols had bounced back from their first loss of the season and was able to pick up a win last week, so they were just looking to try and improve their chances at playoffs. However, the Michigan Manectrics have so far had zero luck, going 0-3 with a -11 differential, so they were really looking to at least just get a win, maybe try and keep their playoff picture alive. They really needed this win to get this win. But that being said, the Santa Maria Absols brought a team of Tinglu, Lunala, Alola Momola, Garganackle, Iron Valiant, and finally Galarian Weezing, while the Michigan Manectrics brought a team of Zekrom, not Garganackle, um, what is this thing called again? Glimora. I've used this thing before. Why? How dare I forget it? Heatran, Shaman Sky, Mew, and finally Araquanid. Now, both the Manectrics started off with their Araquanid, while the Absols started off with their Tinglu, and immediately the Araquanid got some big damage the um, off on the Tinglu, doing 75% with a liquidation. Tinglu did go for a ruination though, so the Araquanid did take quite a lot, but I do feel as though this was a pretty positive trade for the Manectrics. And afterwards, the Araquanid just kept going, doing some big damage against the Alomomola, bringing it down to 59%, and on subsequent hit, bringing it down to 34. Of course, Alomomola is just bulky and is able to recover that damage off, so it was able to do so with a wish. And was able to pick up the first kill of the game with an alluring voice. Now, Shaman came in and was actually brought a very interesting set with Worry Seed, which meant that the incoming Levitate Galarian Weezing was unable to take the incoming Earth Power and was brought down to 70%. So it is now unable to really check that Shaman properly. The incoming Garganackle was trying to wall a little bit. It uses Terra Steel, but the Mew came in and was able to roar it out. Weezing came in and was promptly killed by the Mew. And then the Lunala came in, which tried to set up with an agility, but wasn't able to do so and was roared out. Uh, Afterwards, the Garganackle came back in and actually went for body press, and the incoming Heatran took around 51%, and then was killed by another one. But the Heatran was actually able to get Stealth Rocks up before going down, so that was pretty solid on them. Shaman came in and went for Earth Power, which did a lot of damage. Um, Now, I will say I do think the Santa Maria Absols make a mistake here as they switch in their Tinglu. The Garganackle could have potentially stayed in and went for Recover. It didn't lose any special defense from the Earth Power, so it's not like it was going to die from another one. Maybe it was a roll, and I'm not really sure. But um, Tinglu does go down to the Shaman, and afterwards, surprisingly enough, the Iron Valiant comes in with Quark Drive attack, not speed, attack, which meant that the Shaman still just outsped it and was able to kill it off with a Seed Flare. So that was a big blunder by the Santa Maria Absols. Now, afterwards, the Shaman finally was able to go down after it missed a Seed Flare, and actually the Lunala went for an Agility, which meant it was becoming very, very scary. However, Mew came in and was Terra Fairy, so he was able to take a Moongeist Beam and roar it out. Afterwards, the Garganackle came in and was able to just decided to switch back out. Um, the Absols brought back their Lunala and was able to kill off the Mew. Now Zekrom came in and um, killed off the Lunala with a Bolt Strike and was able to kill the Garganackle with 2 Earth Powers. Now, this matchup was super closely contested. Both of them were trying to go for big plays. Worry Seed Shaman was just a fantastic idea this week, as it would have been pretty much walled by the Galarian Weezing. Maybe Air Slash would have done a lot, but either way, it would have been a decent enough check. And I decided to put this matchup here because this was a huge, huge upset. I did not think the Manectrics were going to win this matchup at all, but they did. And yeah, good on them. They really needed this win. And Santa Maria Absols go down, um, lose their match and go 2-2. They're going to be looking to bounce back once again in the following week. But yeah, very good match played by both parties. And yeah, decided to give it week match of the week. On to the kill leaders now. We have a newcomer in the Michigan Manectrics. The first time they have a proper top 10 slot with their Zekrom. He was able to pick up 2 kills this week. It had been picking up some kills here and there, but this week it was able to pick up 2, which meant it was just barely able to slot itself in with 5 kills, 3 deaths, and a +2 differential. Our next entry is actually also another newcomer with the Ellesmere Eternals Metagross. It was able to pick up another 2 kills, kind of like Zekrom was able to pick up some kills here and there in the last few weeks, bringing its total up to 5 kills and 3 deaths with a +2 differential. Now, once again, another 9th place entry is the Russian Rapidash's Clodsire. Due to its last week's performance, it was able to picking up 4 kills. It was able to stay on the list here. However, it did just pick up a death this week, so that's why it would have been 8 if it didn't die, but it did. So it is currently at 5 kills and 3 deaths with a +2 differential. Now, finally, an 8th place member is the All-Seeing's Galarian Zapdos. It did not pick up any kills this week. Actually, it did. Actually, no, it did. But it did pick up a kill this week, which meant that it was able to kind of just barely stay in the top 10 with 5 kills, 2 deaths, and a +3 differential, pretty much being carried by that week 2 performance. Next up, we have the legendary Landorus Hisuian Avalugg with 5 kills, 1 death, and a +4 differential. I think it was able to pick up 1 kill this week. Actually, no, it was not able to pick up a kill this week. It's kind of like a lot of the other kind of like the Galarian Zapdos. It's kind of just staying here because of its week 2 performance. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it only has 1 death, so it's been very good defensive piece for the legendary Landorus. Next up, we have the Santa Maria Absol's Garganacl. Was unable to pick up kills this week. However, it's just been picking up a few kills here and there in the last few weeks. So because of that, it did bring up its total to 6 kills and 2 deaths with a +4 differential. Next up, we have the Ellesmere Eternals Darkrai with 6 kills, 1 death, and +5 differential. I think it was able to pick up 1 kill this week, if I'm not mistaken. If not, then whatever. Again, kind of like a lot of the other Pokemon this week, it's being held here because of its week 2 performance. Hasn't been able to really even remotely closely mirror the same success. So it is now in 5th place. At some point, it was in 2nd. Next up, we have the Defenders of Staliwrath's Giratina Origin with 6 kills and 0 deaths still, with a +6 differential. It's been picking up kills slowly here and there. Doesn't really have like a big breakout week, just kind of been picking up a kill here and there. So it's been able to slowly build itself up as other Pokemon haven't been able to pick up kills themselves. Next up in 2nd place, we have the legendary Landorus's Mewtwo with 7 kills, 2 deaths, and a +5 differential, and only picked up 1 kill this week. It's really being held by most of its other performances, and did die this week, so it wasn't able to hold on to its number 2 spot. Well, it was able to hold on to its number 2 spot, but it is sharing it with a newcomer this week in the Carry Wisp Magearna. It was able to pick up 5 kills this week. So it was against the Virginia River Bravas, going for a pretty late game sweep. The prison strategy was absolutely brilliant. So it was able to pick up those kills, and now it is in 2nd place. And once again, at the top spot, we've got the Philadelphia Smeargles Fluttermane. Even without getting any kills, nothing was able to catch up to it, and it is still at the top spot. Once again, the Philadelphia Smeargles, just the great coaches that they are, have been able to keep that top spot pretty much the entire season so far. So we'll have to see if they ever lose that top spot. Also, they don't only have 3 games played, but yeah, at 8 kills, 4 deaths with a +4 differential. Fluttermane has been able to um, thrive here. Actually, not 4 deaths, only 3. But anyways, doesn't matter. It's still at the top spot here. And this Mons and the Mon of the week, I've decided to go with Magirna, picking up 5 kills in its match. Again, Imprison, very smart strategy, especially against that Cresselia. Combine Cresselia is always a threat, so to be able to get rid of that is just fantastic. And yeah, it picked up very big kills against the Primarina, and also was able to kill the only 2 checks that it had, which was that Primarina um, and the Iron Treads, and also to a certain extent the Cresselia. So it really just kind of put in so much work on its own. Obviously supported by some of its other party members, but at the end of the day, it was mostly Magirna that did all the work. Now, finally, to end off this episode, we're going to talk about a very small free agent pickup from the Carry Wisps. They're dropping Dodrio for Greedent and Electric. I will say I don't particularly agree with this switch. Dojo is not exactly a very good Pokemon, but it is better than Greedent and Electric. It's also something that you do actually have to take in consideration when prepping, which I don't think I can say the same for Electric and for Greedent or especially Electric. Um, like Dojo, you do actually have to prep for, while Greedent and Electric kind of just prep for it on its own. Um, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what the coach that decided to make this trade thinks, and they decided to go um, with this trade. So let's see how those 2 Pokemon fare for the Carry Wisps. To be fair, Dojo hasn't been brought all season, so maybe they felt as though it was time to maybe give it a switch to do a little bit of a switch up. So that was Fungus News. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.